CEO of Kombucha Town, and we make a wide variety of kombucha beverages. Kombucha is a fermented tea product. Actually, is dated back to 200 BC in ancient China, and so it has, in the last couple of decades, become a very popular consumer product. And so our main claim to fame, our original claim to fame, was being the first kombucha in a can, and now we're really innovating out of that specific category and adding the functional benefits of the live culture, which is probiotic, antioxidants, things that really help instill a great deep sense of wellness in our bodies, into other products as well. So we're continuing to innovate to create healthy beverages for people on the go. I think there's a very tactile value and kind of more intimate value to discovering a product, either at an event or at a store. You can grab it, you can look at it, you can read the label. I think that's important, and I don't think will ever be completely eliminated, but I do think that the internet is making it a lot easier for people to, once they do discover your product, purchase it, have it delivered directly to their door, have a subscription, different things that are making it more convenient. One of the important factors of emerging and disruptive brands like ourselves is, how do we educate and inspire people through delicious products? Because I think ultimately people vote with their palate. If it doesn't taste good, they're not going to consume it. And so trying to compete with something like Coca-Cola, which originally had cocaine in it, right, is going to be kind of difficult. But through innovation and through the right kinds of marketing, and even events like this where people are learning about, okay, how can I invest in and how can I really become a consumer of and an owner of these opportunities, I think that's really an important next step. And so, with that, people will double down on, hey, okay, we know that sugar is kind of the general bad guy. And eventually, I think even the bigger mainstream or, public companies that are making beverages, they're going to have to deal with the reality that their product's been killing their customers.
No, your story's a little different.
Yeah, so for me, I relatively young in life, young adulthood. My father passed away of brain cancer and passed away, and then several years later, my mother started to develop early onset Alzheimer's, and so there was this sort of dark cloud of kind of sickness and health issues for me as a young adult. And so that's what really inspired me to take a really hard look at, starting with myself, like, what am I putting into my body and how is this affecting me? And seeing it with my close family, and it doesn't take much to see how rampant that is in society. And so that was what really motivated me to really clean up my health and start my own path to much higher level of wellness. And I discovered kombucha that way, through somebody who I'd met in college. I've learned in a really cool way through just lots of experimentation of how to use different types of tea and how to process the finished product so that it's still live, it still has great integrity and those benefits. It can exist in that package, and so it's something that I think really helps us stand out, because it's much more stable, but also the efficacy is still really high. So we've been in business for a good amount of time. I actually started my business by selling my kayak to buy some 5-gallon buckets. So also bootstrapped, very brick and mortar. So since I've done a host of different types of fundraising, there's definitely friends and family. Most of that was just on basic promissory notes. I actually got an exemption from the SEC to do some, it was before equity crowdfunding was even a thing. It was just unaccredited investor lending. Then we rolled that into an SBA note. I've worked with a couple of angel investors and some strategic partners. Like, we had a wholesaler that gave us a line of credit. Valuations are a tricky thing right now. I raised my last $500,000 at a $20 million valuation in 2019, and now after COVID, several years of losses and things that are really hard to recuperate from. So we're offering the best deal on equity we ever have, at a $5.5 million valuation.
A what?
A $5.5 million valuation.
Really? So, and ordinarily you would call that a down round, but
it is
not really, because you're doing it in a different way. But the first round was at 20 million valuation.
Yeah. So in this, that is one reason why I'm kind of capping it at a lower amount to be able.
I think it's very smart, because that would incentivize a lot of people to participate.
Yeah, it's 75% discount. So for anybody watching. I'm a very lean and mean person, and I like, well, in ways, I'm actually a pretty nice guy, but the way that I operate, I like frugality and efficiency is incredibly important, and that's something that even my product, when you consume it, your body becomes way more efficient. And so I plan on growing my business as much as possible in a profitable way. And I've seen so many businesses in my industry take on a bunch of money, spend it with some reckless abandon, trying to buy up market share, and then the founders get fired because it didn't work out. And I don't want that to happen. And I don't want my shareholders to have that happen either. And so for me, it's much more hyper-focusing on what are my values, attracting investors that share those values, and then being able to cultivate a business that's a long-term performing economic asset for them. So to me, it's the long run of build it, make it profitable, share the profits with the people that got me there, and then I do believe that once we reach a critical mass, there will be either an IPO situation or likely a merger with a much larger resourced organization. And in that situation, I'm definitely going to make sure that there are lucrative exit opportunities for people that don't necessarily want to have to hold on to it for decades. Right. You know, so for me, that timeline is probably a 3 to 5 year window of being actively invested in the business. You know, we're asking the people that invest in our business to activate, to engage, say, hey, you're an owner in this company. Share our mission with your following, share our mission with your friends and family. And so I think that's one of the things that I really like about equity crowdfunding is that it creates community in a huge way that normal VC or private equity or family firms that are very much exclusive to high net worth individuals doesn't allow. And so that's what excites me the most.